In the heat of a southern summer afternoon, sunlight glinted off the surface of the neighborhood pool, where the water lay still and glimmering in the driveway of Malik Thompson's home. Malik, a black man who had relocated to this community to build a life defined by peace, perseverance, and promise, had spent weeks preparing for the day he would open his pool for a gathering milestone to celebrate both community and connection. Invitations had gone out to a handful of neighbors and longtime friends, gentle among them, long conscious of the history of exclusion that had shadowed countless stories similar to his. He hoped this day might be a quiet balm against those narratives. As the afternoon drew near, guests arrived, laughter drifting on the warm breeze. Children paddled at the pool's edge while adults chatted, the sound of splashes weaving through conversations of work, family, ambition, and belonging. Then across the street, at her white colonial-style home with neatly trimmed hedges and a pale blue mailbox, Mrs. Evelyn Carter, known in polite whispers among neighbors as the neighborhood HOA president, pulled into her driveway. She watched from her car, arms folded, expression tightening as she saw Malik's pool party in full swing. Mrs. Carter had once nodded politely when Malik moved in. She had greeted him at holidays with a forced cordiality. Now, as she stepped out, her presence crackled through the summer air with an unspoken tension. She crossed the street in crisp heels, her beige skirt rustling. Malik, mid-smile, noticed her and approached, gesturing toward the pool. He wanted this to be a neighborly exchange, a moment to address any misunderstandings before they could. "Fester, what's going on here, Malik?" she said, voice cool, though not shouting. Behind her eyes glimmered a disquiet, as if the sight of black bodies enjoying leisure unsettled something deeper. Rules, paperwork she insisted he'd never submitted. Malik calmly replied that he had filled out every form uploading pool safety documents, insurance, the standard community registration. He politely offered to walk her through it, but Mrs. Carter shook her head, eyes narrowing and abruptly, demanded that he clear the pool and end the gathering, stating firmly that it violated HOA covenants. The invitation had been inclusive, the documents complete. The demand stunned Malik, who felt the sharp sting of a mandate grounded not in policy but prejudice. The air seemed to collapse around him. As the mood in the pool shifted, laughter drained. From the conversation, like water from an overturned bucket, guests exchanged glances, uncertain. Children stopped splashing. Adults watched with rising alarm. Malik steadied himself, and in a tone both measured and resolute, he asked her to point out the specific rule being broken. She couldn't. Instead, she repeated her demand, thickening the air with accusation. At that moment, Malik understood that this was not administration of rules, but enforcement of power. His breath tightened, anger and hurt tangled in his chest, but he kept his composure. Apology on his part would have implied guilt where there was none. So he stood quietly, breathing, weighing what dignity demanded. One deep breath later, he walked into the house and quietly closed the sliding door behind him. The sound startled those still near the pool. In the house, he turned on the drain, watching water vanish in a quiet rush. Outside, the crowd heard the hum of machinery change, the water level receding in the pool basin. The pool drained, mile by drop. The party dissolved before their eyes, the party's joy receding with the water. Children looked on, wide-eyed, some confused. Adults stiffened, silent. The draining was not petty, it was dignified resistance. Malik's statement rang louder than any cry. If your idea of order requires that black joy be cut quietly, then this joy ends on my terms. The silence pressed. Mrs. Carter, aghast, whipped out her phone and dialed 911. In her words, Malik Khan, innocent man with every legal document in order, was endangering the neighborhood, perhaps harboring illicit activity. Her voice on speaker fizzed through the open door in staccato formality. The operator responded with the practiced calm of tragedy, taking in the complaint with the assumption of threat. Malik, standing inside with a rag in hand to catch the last drips from the filter, heard the faint accusation that framed him as problematic, suspicious. His heart pounded not at fear, but at the grotesque reminder that to some, His rightful ownership, his quiet gathering, his stewardship of property might be enough to call the police. Black safety and black ownership marked here as dangerous. It was a scene from a pain-wrought script too many black lives have known. Guests stepped in closer. Some moved to comfort him silently. Others, children returning to collect towels, watched from pastel eyes, not yet fully understanding the injustice.
Hi, neighbor.
The distant wail of sirens pulsed in throaty waves, growing nearer. Malik looked out the window, the pool now empty, a hollow shape in the concrete. He met the gazes of his friends, and without a word, lifted his chin. He was not retreating, he was merely recasting the story. The air felt heavy when the police arrived. Blue uniforms marched up the driveway with clipped footsteps, radios chattering as they approached. On the porch, Mrs. Carter stayed behind, voice trembling slightly, face a picture of righteous outrage. One officer offered Malik a nod, needing answers, offering the courtesy of professional distance. Malik greeted them with calm dignity, speaking in clear, measured tones. He told them of his party, his permits, the abrupt demand to shut it down, and his decision to drain the pool, not to punish, but to assert quiet self-respect in the face of prejudice. He invited them to inspect the documents. Paperwork lay on the living room table. The officers stepped inside, reviewed the files, checked registry numbers. The room held itself. Cameras flicked eyes around the scene, neighbors on porches. Children leaning, strangers suddenly watching, news of an HOA complaint rippling through living rooms. Malik stood at the edge of the empty pool, an image of rattled, quiet courage. Inside, the documents made clear he had done everything right. No code violations, no unpermitted work. The pool was registered, insured, safe. In spite of that, he had been forced to end a gathering simply because of who he was and who his neighbors imagined him to be. This moment was both an ending and a beginning. The officers conferred in hushed murmurs, glancing toward Mrs. Carter, whose hands clenched in front of her. Then they looked back to Malik. The lead officer cleared his throat, closing the folder of papers. His voice was firm, yet impartial. "We've looked over everything," he said. "There's no violation here. You're free to continue, and there's no cause for further action." The words landed like echoes in an empty room. Malik stood still at the edge of the drained pool. No apology from Mrs. Carter, no acknowledgement, just the heavy hum of silence and the setting sun casting long shadows across the concrete. The silence was not over, but shifted as the officers departed. Their body language softened, leaving behind more curiosity than condemnation. Mrs. Carter turned away, retreating into her house with dignity drained from her posture. She left. Wordlessly, almost melting into the background of her own making, the tension in the air eased. Guests exhaled, some in tears, some in quiet relief, though confused, dared to giggle again at the sight of the empty pool. Funny, somehow. A reminder that joy could come back, fill again. Malik gathered his friends, offering soft words of thanks, dignity in his eyes rather than bitterness. He asked that they remain. He would refill the pool. Tonight, maybe he would bathe under the stars, bodies rising with water under moonlight. Or perhaps the gathering would continue, if only in conversation and presence. Pride may not return the drained water, but courage did pour in its place. In the days that followed, the story traveled. Quietly at first, neighbors in other yards wondered what happened with Malik. Whispers circulated, but not of scandal. More so, a shade of admiration. Online, a neighbor posted a measured account. HOA president demanded a black man drain his pool during a party. He did. When she called the cops, they found no violation. He poured water back on his terms. The story rippled across social media, sparking conversations about the persistence of exclusion, parallel with assertion of dignity. Commenters shared their own versions. "My black neighbor was asked to show his IDs while my white ones aren't. How many bodies must smile under suspicion?" Turning off the faucet on prejudice, then reopening it on your own terms. The story became a symbol, a moment of righteous, quiet resistance, of reestablishing sovereignty. It resonated. Within black communities especially, A new parable of staying calm in the face of disruption, of draining the water, if necessary, but never letting the heart run dry.